Hey everyone, it's Rob. It is October 19th, 2018. It is a Friday. Hope you guys have had a fantastic week and will enjoy your weekend here coming up. I wanted to talk about a conference that I went to recently in Dallas. It was the NexGen Wireless Network Summit put on by Fierce Wireless, and they invited a lot of industry experts to this summit to talk about what's coming down the pike in the wireless network realm and what the changes may be. So I wanted to take a moment to record a video and talk to you guys about it. And as I scroll through here, you can see executives from major companies such as Nokia, T-Mobile, Dish, and Verizon, Rise Broadband, Starry, at&t, and Sprint, who are some of the featured speakers. Of course, there were other companies represented there as well. So it's a really good conference in understanding what's going on in the wireless network space. I'm going to add this to the crypto and technology playlist here on the channel. I also want to point out that I've written an article. It's about 1,700 words, one of my longer articles on the conference and what I gathered from that conference and some of the things that I think that we're going to see in the wireless network space moving forward. It's not up yet, but I submitted it to the site, so it should be up probably by tomorrow, Saturday morning sometime, or dependent on when the editors have a chance to look at it, maybe Saturday night, but it'll definitely be out this weekend. Go check that out. You just go to Seeking Alpha and basically type in my name. Robert Keents here. And you will find me. There I am right there. And it will open up my profile page, and then you'll see all my latest articles. In any case, that'll be out, but I'm going to do a synopsis of what I saw at the conference and put it on this video. So I'll be talking a lot about what I heard, so I'm not going to have a lot of visual exhibits for you, but I'm going to discuss what I think were the most important aspects of this conference and why it's important to you. So wireless networking is really big, and it's going to become bigger in our lifestyles because it's how we connect to each other. So if you're using a tablet or a wireless phone, or you're even on Wi-Fi in your house with your laptop, you're using a form of wireless. And wireless from the industry perspective has traditionally meant cell phone, although there are big changes coming to that, or even tablet to some extent. But there are big changes coming. So what's going to happen? So the Internet of Things, or IoT, is something where we're talking about connecting video cameras and sensors, whether it be industrial or home use. It could be sensors in a workyard which tracks how much product is being produced from a machine or where a specific crane is. It could be a camera watching over a shipyard or a camera watching over your house for security reasons. That could be an IoT device. It could be a refrigerator that emails you that you're out of milk, right? Or something along those lines. IoT is basically connecting a bunch of little devices onto the network to transmit information for any use that you could think of. Some popular applications of IoT or Internet of Things are autonomous driving. So if you're thinking about a Tesla, which drives you to a destination, but isn't completely controlled by the car. It's controlled by the car in conjunction with some traffic control computing that's done on the side as you move down the road. That would be autonomous vehicles. It's sort of what we saw in the Jetsons cartoon years and years ago, if you're as old as me and remember that, where they would get into their little ship and it would take them where they wanted to go, and they could do whatever they wanted during that trip. They could read a book, or Judy was doing her nails, or whatever the case may be. And that's kind of where we are with autonomous driving. And I think in Silicon Valley they are actually putting a test system like this into place, where with a Tesla or other type of vehicles that have the logic to drive but need a little bit of help from the network as well to help guide them where they're going. They're testing out these projects, and so that's coming soon to a highway and a road near you because of the advancements that they're making in wireless networks. So IoT, that's basically IoT. There's also, 5G and edge networking. I'll go over those concepts. So basically what 5G is it came after 4G and LTE, which came after 3G. And all the G stands for is generation. So 3G was the first mobile phone generation in which you could actually get data. And not a lot of data, but you could get data. It went beyond calls and texts. And then when you get into 4G, you could actually get broadband data, like you actually watch videos, especially when you get to 4G LTE, which is the extended version of LTE, which actually put enough bandwidth on the network where you could look at video, and not necessarily the highest quality video, but you could get multimedia content. 5G is going to offer speeds, some say 50 to 100 times faster than 4G. And what that's really going to do is open up the network everywhere pretty much at all times once this fully gets built out. And it may take, I think one of the VPs of T-Mobile said it may take 10 to 15 years to become a reality. So we've got probably another generation before this network becomes a reality, the 5G network, completely. But it's on its way, and there are actual implementations going right now in the United States. There's a startup called Starry, which has implemented 5G in Boston. And they have 16 towers covering all of metropolitan Boston. And you can get 200 megabit internet service up or down for $50 a month. And they basically send your router. You plug in the router and you're ready to go. It's like a super easy user experience. It's cheaper than any of the wireline technologies, the cables, or the DSLs. And it works really, really well. And so and they're doing this in LA as well. And then eventually, starting next year, they're going to roll it out in DC and New York. So you're starting to see these 5G high bandwidth wireless networks being built in the big cities. And eventually, these carriers have plans to put them in suburbia and even in rural environments as well. Now, the financial aspects of each one is different because it's easier to put it in an urban area because you have more people that can pay for it. And so you can make more money. Whereas you go to suburban and rural, there's other challenges as well, such as distance. So 5G and this type of network, the towers that are sending this signal, they're sending very high wavelength signals out that don't travel very far. And they don't penetrate a lot of foliage, such as trees. So there's a lot of engineering tricks that they have to use to basically get these networks to work. But when they get them rolled out, there's going to be connectivity at all times everywhere, and it's going to be fully enabled broadband. So for example, if you wanted to walk around with a virtual reality headset and play Pokemon Go and basically be able to, instead of seeing it on your phone screen, see a 360 view of what's going on around you, the Pokemon Go, you can do that. And that's what this is going to enable. It's going to enable people to do business anytime, anywhere, because with the addition of edge computing, it's going to push the cloud or all the data storage and all the applications out to the edges. So you can be anywhere and still access your data and applications. So if you're working in corporate America, that's going to enable a lot of teleworkers to be connected to their networks at all times. And this could be a good and a bad thing because you're never going to be able to get away from the network. That could be a bad thing. But a good thing is you may be able to work from home more and have more flexible scheduling if that supports what you want to do. If you're not the type of person that likes to go work an 8 to 5 and sit in a cubicle all day long. It's like I said, it's going to enable autonomous driving. It's also, one of the concerns is it's going to put a lot of high gigahertz frequencies in your neighborhood. So there are two basic ways to get 5G into suburbia where most people live in the United States. And that's basically either to put these really tall towers out taller than the normal cell tower, that tower over an area and shoot a beam straight down to where you're at. So they can shoot from over the tops of the trees and won't be blocked, laterally by all the trees and the foliage. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to put small cells up everywhere, which is just a little box that you put like on telephone poles and light poles and stoplight poles and on businesses. And you put thousands of those up and it creates like this mesh network, which allows you to connect at all times because there'll be one like every 100 foot or so. And you'll, have your cell phone or your iPad or even your car connected to this, and as you drive down the street, it just seamlessly connects to the next one, the next one, the next one, so that you're always connected. You're never outside the range of your home base. And each of your devices will get its own individual IP address, which is your Internet Protocol address, which is basically like it's a physical address, except for it moves with your device. It's a set of numbers that moves with your device and identifies you. And so we do have the technology to assign an IP address to every device in existence. Every computer, every cell phone, every connected IOT device, every camera, because those addressing schemes have been set up and have been put in place for a while, and now it's this 5G networks. This is going to drive the always-on connectivity. Some of the drawbacks are, I don't know if people are going to be happy with these high gigahertz frequency ranges being bombarded at them all the time, because I don't know if there's been a whole lot of studies around the health of this and whether this could cause cancer or some other issues. Because if you think about it, we really have had cell phones strongly in place around the world for about a generation. I remember when I was in college, about 20 or so years ago, almost nobody had a cell phone. A few people had them. They were very expensive. They were very bulky. The mobile versions of them were probably 4 times what they are today, and you got very little minutes, and there wasn't such a thing as texting on them at that time. There was no data. So it's really about a generation of people. About 20, 25 years of people really have had cell phones in their lives. And I don't know that we have enough scientific studies to show, what the effects are on our bodies. It generally, for something like that, it takes a generation or two for that research to be done. So it's possible as we're pounding ourselves with all of this high frequency electromagnetic interference, or EMI, that we could be causing issues to our body. And so we're kind of rolling out this 5G and these antennas everywhere, pounding these very high signal rates all the time everywhere, and it's kind of like your body can't get away from it. And what are the effects going to be? Is it going to mutate cells? Is it going to cause cancers? Or will it have no effect at all? And we don't really know the answer. There haven't been enough studies done. I've seen people that claimed where they've seen studies or participated in studies that show that too much EMI can cause a lot of bodily harm. And there are people, for example, that are trying to get just regular Wi-Fi access out of schools, for example, because kids get hit by that all day long, and they're there for 8 to 10 hours, and they're like, hey, we need to get rid of this. So there are cases in which we don't know the long-term effects of having all this radiation around us all the time. If you think about it, you may have it at work, but you come home and you generally don't have it. You may have a cell phone, but there's not a lot of signals penetrating your house because you'll have trees up, and the cell networks aren't perfect. Sometimes you can't even get coverage, and so the overall amount of EMI that we get is fairly moderate. But if they're going to put small cells in these tall millimeter wave 5G towers up everywhere, that's going to change things. We're all going to get bombarded with this high frequency stuff all the time, and it may take a generation for us to do the studies and figure out, was that a good thing or a bad thing. So I think that there are some potential health concerns there that we need to answer. And I think economically it's going to change the game. It's going to change how fast you can get signal. So, for example, the company I was talking about earlier, Starry, which has implemented a network in Boston, now LA, and then next year in DC and New York, they're able to cover all of Boston in 16 sites, and it only costs them $5.50 per person to put this up, and so they're selling service for $50. So that tells you they only need to get 1 in 10 people to break even, right? 1 in 10 people Boston sign up to break even, and they're saying they're getting 95% of cord cutters, people that are getting rid of their terrestrial landline service, and that equates overall to about 25% of the market. So they only needed 10% of the market, they're getting 25%. So they're making big money off of this. So we're already seeing, this being enabled, and it's creating new opportunities for companies. For a lot of the existing carriers, they're having to change their business model. They're having to build out these 5G networks, and they're having to put more resources on the edge to be able to run applications and hold data to give you that user experience. One of the use cases I saw at the summit, it was talking about how you can be in a stadium, and one of the reasons people stop going to stadiums is because they can sit at home and watch it on TV for a lot cheaper, because it may cost you $200 to go to a game by yourself by the time you pay parking, food, and your ticket. If you take a family, it'd be $800 for 3 to 4 hours of entertainment. That's a lot of money. But you can sit at home and pay $20 a month or $30 a month and get a TV package and be able to watch it. And you have, a 50, 60-inch screen. You have surround sound. You've got, your devices there where you can look up stats during the game, and you can chat with people, and all sorts of stuff going on. And you're in the comfort of your own home. You don't have to dress up. You don't have to worry about that obnoxious guy next to you spilling the beer on people. And so what is happening is stadiums are trying to get people to come back, but in order to do that, they have to enhance the user experience. So 5G is going to be a way in which they can bring an enhanced user experience. They can bring you stats and all sorts of things related to the game while you're there, so you could be on a device and have that same experience you have at home. And they're trying to draw people back into the stadium. They're trying to allow people to bring their smart devices down to concerts, whereas before that was not thought well of because people would take videos and put them on YouTube. Now they're trying to attract people through saying, no, you can be listening to a song and your device will identify that song for you and immediately pop up information about that song, who it was written by, why the song was written, what it really means, sales for that song and how many times the band has played it before and stuff like that. So they're really trying to enhance the experience, and that's another use case for it. And then basically just getting people broadband access on their cell phones and tablets wherever they are at all times. So I think 5G is going to be a big game changer in terms of our connectivity and our ability really to go to the next level in terms of always being connected to the grid. Philosophically, I'm not sure if always being connected to the grid is a good thing, because to be honest, sometimes I come home from work and I don't want to be connected. I intentionally have to pull myself away and not be connected to the internet and not be on the computer and stuff, so that I can interact with the family and my friends, and I can go out and do fun stuff and reconnect with nature and take care of the animals and grow the garden and all that stuff that I like to do. Sometimes I have to forcibly pull myself away, and so the question is, will 5G enable addiction to the internet and to networks, and will that overall be healthy? It certainly has a lot of good use cases for making our lives easier and providing us more access to information, so it can be very democratic in that way, and that people who may not have as much access to certain types of education may be able to get it now for free or very cheaply. And it may allow people to work from home and have more flexible schedules. Those are definitely benefits. It may allow us to have safer roads and streets. Companies like Verizon have safe streets initiatives where they're using data to determine why accidents occur, and they can adjust traffic patterns, both in planning but on real time and on the fly. Now, those are some good things. Enhancing your user experience at a concert or venue could be a good thing. But then what are the bad things? Do we need to be connected all the time? Are we worried about Big Brother accessing our information, knowing where we are all the time? Are we worried about the Matrix scenario where the machines get smarter than we are, in artificial intelligence? I think there are philosophical questions that we need to be answering overall as to, we're enabling all this stuff. But one thing I didn't see at the summit, I didn't see people talking about two things. I didn't see them talking about philosophically whether this is a good idea, whether from health reasons or, Big Brother reasons, or sometimes we all need to disconnect just to maintain our humanity and our sanity. The second thing was they didn't talk about security, and I mean data security and identity security. If you're connected all the time, that makes it easier for people to reach out and grab your information, maybe use that information, or maybe to harass you. Instead of people calling you on the phone harassing you for a product or something, maybe somebody harasses you because they can follow you around in real time because they're always connected. And that could be dangerous as well from a certain perspective. Sometimes it's good to have a little anonymity and not let everybody know where you are at all times. Will this be like the Facebook syndrome where people are always posting what they're doing? It's like you have no privacy. Will this amplify this, tenfold? There are some questions that need to be answered there, and I didn't see this at the conference. And that's because it's basically put on by, Fierce Wireless, which covers wireless companies and their vendors, and also the vendors and the companies themselves. So they're, they need to be talking about these concerns, but they're not, because they're really focused on getting it built out. It's all about building out. It's on the business opportunity. So I think if you're an investor, there's definitely business opportunity there. I think if you're just a saver, it could help you in a number of ways and make you more connected. I don't know it's necessarily going to enhance your savings, but it may improve your quality of life potentially and offer some lower cost alternatives maybe for some things that you do now. Maybe it enables people to deliver groceries to your door and saves you time. I mean, it could be a lot of different applications to that. So there's that. But I also think that we need to ask these philosophical and security questions. Are we going to be secure if we're always connected? Are we going to have a Matrix scenario, or are we going to have, a Skynet scenario from the Terminator movies? All those sort of extreme sort of things that authors have written about in the past that could happen. I think it's going to be a very interesting time. And I think in terms of like Bitcoin digital currencies, I think it's going to make them easier to use, because right now they're kind of clunky to use for everyday transactions. But if you have a network that's low latency that really enables you to use applications all the time, I think people are going to figure out a better version of Bitcoin, maybe using Hashgraph or some other method. And they're going to figure out ways to get digital currencies into everyday life. That could be a good thing as long as it's backed by something physical like gold or silver, and it's not a giant Ponzi, and it's not controlled by a central bank, which can basically dilute it whenever they want. Digital currencies could be good or bad. It's just a tool. But I think the networks that are being built are going to enable more of that digital currency. So that's definitely something to look out for if you're an investor in the digital currencies or you like to follow them. That definitely is another big spot where these new wireless networks can impact it. But I think we're about to get into a world where we're always on, and it's hard to separate from being always on. And from an identity perspective, from a security perspective, from a capability perspective, there's going to be a lot of changes. A lot of companies are going to benefit from this. You don't necessarily have to be building a 5G network, because 5G is the wireless part, but it has to connect to the wired part at some point. They call these backhaul networks, where you stick all the wireless data on the physical network, and it goes, all over the rest of the world on the wire. It doesn't, you don't transmit and it goes all the way, overseas. It has to hit the physical wire first before it can go long distances. So I think companies that, even cable companies or traditional wireline internet service companies are going to benefit from 5G because they're going to be selling their bandwidth on their wired networks around all of these cities and between cities wholesale to these other enterprises. So they're going to make more money as well. So I think there's definitely some investment opportunities there to take a look at. But this is going to be a big change. This is going to be an enabler in a lot of ways, and it could be a disabler potentially in some ways. And we really need to have those discussions and talk about whether this is good or bad. I think any tool can be used for good or bad. This is just a tool. So I like its promise, but definitely we should keep our ear to the ground as to how different entities and people are looking at having this used and whether we think that's a good or bad thing. So guys, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And until next time, this is Rob on the Sui Jurist channel.